Have you ever wondered why so many seniors suddenly lose balance and fall, even when they think their legs are strong enough? The truth is that most falls are not caused by clumsiness or bad luck. Instead, there is one small but powerful muscle deep in your body that controls nearly 90% of your stability. If that muscle weakens, your risk of falling skyrockets. And here's the shocking part. Doctors rarely talk about it, even though it plays one of the most critical roles in keeping you on your feet. In this video, we're uncovering the secret muscle that quietly decides whether you stay steady or stumble. You'll discover 6 important truths about how this muscle works, why it gets weaker with age, and what you can do to strengthen it. Each point reveals how something so small can make such a big difference in protecting your independence and preventing life-changing injuries. Stay tuned until the very end, because what you learn today could change the way you move, walk, and protect yourself from dangerous falls. By the time you finish, you will not only understand how this tiny muscle controls your balance, but also how to unlock its strength so you can stay confident and secure in every step you take. Now let's get started. Number 1, the hidden hip flexor connection. The tiny muscle most seniors never hear about is the hip flexor, specifically the iliopsoas. It may sound complicated, but its job is simple. It lifts your leg and stabilizes your pelvis every time you take a step. Without it, walking would feel like dragging your legs through sand. When this muscle weakens, your body loses the smooth rhythm that keeps you balanced, and the risk of stumbling rises dramatically. Most seniors notice the effects without realizing the cause. They may complain of feeling heavy when climbing stairs, or they notice their feet catching on rugs or uneven sidewalks. These are not signs of clumsiness. They are signals that the hip flexor has lost its strength. The problem is that the muscle sits deep inside the body, so its weakness is easy to overlook until the consequences become severe. Let's consider a real example. Walter, a 76-year-old man, had always been active, but started noticing he could no longer lift his knees as high when walking. He dismissed it as just getting older. Then one winter, he tripped over a curb and fractured his wrist in the fall. His physical therapist explained that his hip flexors were so weak, they could no longer control his stride. That weakness had set him up for the accident. The science behind this is clear. The hip flexor muscles are central to balance because they control forward movement and provide stability at the same time. When they weaken, your stride shortens, your steps shuffle, and your body leans in ways that throw off your center of gravity. Each of these changes multiplies your chance of falling. The good news is that weakness is not destiny. Just like any other muscle, the hip flexors can be trained and strengthened at any age. Gentle exercises like seated marches, standing knee lifts, and controlled step-ups rebuild strength and coordination. Even just a few minutes a day can restore power to this overlooked area, transforming your walk from hesitant to confident. The deeper message is that prevention begins with awareness. By knowing the role of the hip flexor, you can see that falls are not random or unavoidable. They are the result of a chain of small weaknesses that can be corrected. When you understand this, you reclaim hope, the knowledge that you can take action, strengthen your body, and protect your independence for years to come. Number 2, how aging quietly shuts this muscle down. As the years go by, the hip flexor slowly loses its strength and flexibility, not because you stop using it completely, but because modern habits gradually weaken it. Sitting for long hours in chairs, recliners, or cars keeps the hip flexor in a shortened position. Over time, the muscle adapts by becoming tight and stiff. When you finally stand, it cannot lengthen properly, which steals power from every step you take. This tightening creates a double problem. First, the muscle loses strength because it is not being challenged to lift and stabilize your legs fully. Second, it loses mobility, which means your stride becomes shorter and more awkward. Together, these changes alter your balance in ways you may not even notice until you trip or wobble unexpectedly. Picture Evelyn, a 72-year-old woman who enjoyed reading in her armchair for hours. She thought she was simply relaxing. But over the years, her hip flexors had shortened so much that walking across her living room felt like shuffling. When she fell one evening reaching for the phone, her doctor told her the issue wasn't weak ankles or knees, but the deep muscles in her hips that had quietly shut down from years of sitting. Medical studies confirm this reality. Seniors who spend more than 6 hours a day sitting have dramatically weaker hip flexors than those who break up their day with movement. This weakness doesn't just make falls more likely, it also contributes to back pain, poor posture, and loss of independence. In other words, the hip flexor is a silent link. in a chain reaction that affects your entire body. The encouraging truth is that aging does not have to mean surrendering this muscle. Even gentle activities like standing up once every half hour, walking around the room, or doing small leg lifts while seated can keep blood flowing and prevent the hip flexor from shutting down completely. Add regular stretching to lengthen the muscle, and you begin reversing years of tightness. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 3, the chain reaction on balance and stability. When the hip flexor weakens, it sets off a chain reaction that spreads through your entire body. Because this muscle connects your lower spine to your legs, any loss of strength or flexibility affects how you stand, walk, and stabilize yourself. Instead of lifting your feet naturally, you begin dragging them or shuffling, which increases the chance of tripping on rugs, curbs, or even uneven ground in your own yard. This weakness also shifts pressure to other parts of your body. Your knees and ankles end up doing more work than they were designed for, which can lead to pain or instability. Your lower back often suffers as well, because the hip flexor is no longer supporting the spine properly. Over time, this imbalance makes every step less secure, turning ordinary movements into risky situations. Consider Harold, an 80-year-old man, who prided himself on walking to the store each day. As his hip flexors weakened, he began leaning forward without realizing it. His stride shortened, his feet shuffled, and he started catching his toes on the sidewalk. One day, he stumbled forward, narrowly avoiding a serious fall. His physical therapist explained that the issue was not his shoes or his eyesight, but the chain reaction from weakened hip flexors disrupting his entire posture. What makes this problem dangerous is how subtle it feels at first. You may notice only small changes, getting tired faster, needing to hold on to a railing, or avoiding long walks. These little adjustments may seem harmless, but they are your body's way of compensating for lost strength. If left unaddressed, they build up to a moment when a fall becomes almost unavoidable. The positive side is that the same chain reaction works in reverse. Strengthening the hip flexors improves balance, posture, and stride, which then eases pressure on your knees, ankles, and back. Even small improvements in this one muscle ripple outward to restore stability across your whole body. That is why doctors who specialize in rehabilitation quietly place so much importance on hip flexor training, even if they don't talk about it openly. Every senior deserves to know that falls are not random. They are often the end result of a process that begins with one tiny muscle growing weak. By breaking that chain reaction now, you stop the fall before it ever happens. You give yourself the gift of steady steps, upright posture, and the confidence to move freely without fear. Number 4, why most doctors overlook this muscle. One of the most frustrating truths for seniors is that the hip flexor rarely gets the attention it deserves from medical professionals. When an older adult reports trouble walking or frequent falls, the focus usually lands on the knees, ankles, or even the inner ear. While these areas can certainly play a role, the hidden weakness in the hip flexor often goes untested and unmentioned. Why does this happen? In part, it's because the hip flexor is deep inside the body, and it's not easy to examine with a quick glance. Doctors may prescribe medication for balance, recommend canes, or point to arthritis as the culprit. What they sometimes miss is that without strong hip flexors, no amount of knee treatment or ankle support will fully restore stability. Take the example of Margaret, a 79-year-old woman who visited her doctor after several near falls. She was told she had arthritis in her knees, and while that was true, the therapy she received didn't address the deeper issue. It wasn't until she worked with a physical therapist who tested her hip flexors that the real problem was uncovered. Once she began targeted exercises, her confidence returned, and the frequency of her stumbles decreased dramatically. This oversight doesn't mean doctors don't care. It simply reflects the way most medical training prioritizes obvious areas of pain. Muscles like the hip flexor, which rarely scream for attention until they fail, can be forgotten in the bigger picture. Unfortunately, seniors are the ones who pay the price when that blind spot leads to falls. The lesson here is that you must become your own advocate. If you feel unsteady, if your stride has shortened, or if you've noticed more tripping, ask directly about your hip flexor strength. Bring it up during a medical visit or request a referral to a physical therapist who understands the role of this muscle. By naming the problem, you open the door to real solutions. What this tells us is simple knowledge is power. You cannot always rely on others to connect the dots for you. By learning about the hip flexor and understanding its role in balance, you give yourself an advantage that too many seniors never receive. This awareness alone can be the difference between suffering a dangerous fall and maintaining your independence. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 5, simple signs your hip flexor is already weak. The challenge with this tiny muscle is that its weakness creeps in quietly. Most seniors don't realize the problem until the signs have been there for years. The first clue often shows up in your stride. Instead of lifting your knees smoothly, your feet begin to shuffle along the ground. You may hear the sound of your shoes dragging, or notice yourself catching the edge of a rug more often. These are not signs of clumsiness. They are your body's way of saying the hip flexor has lost its power. Another common sign is difficulty climbing stairs. When the hip flexor is strong, lifting your leg onto the next step feels natural. But as it weakens, each step feels heavier, as though you are dragging your body upward instead of lifting it with ease. Some seniors begin avoiding stairs altogether, thinking it's just part of aging, when in fact it's a specific muscle crying out for attention. Lower back discomfort can also be connected. Because the hip flexor attaches to the spine, weakness or tightness there often pulls on your lower back, leading to stiffness or pain. Many older adults chase relief with back stretches or pain medication, never realizing the root of the problem lies deeper. Consider Raymond, an 82-year-old man who began noticing he needed to use his arms to push himself out of a chair. He thought it was only his legs getting old. But when a physical therapist checked his hip flexor strength, it was almost non-existent. Once he started a simple daily routine of knee lifts and light resistance exercises, his ability to rise from chairs improved. His stride grew stronger and his back pain lessened. The good news is that recognizing these signs gives you a chance to act before a serious fall occurs. Weak hip flexors are not a permanent sentence. They respond quickly to training because they are central to movement. Even small daily exercises make a difference. And with consistency, you can rebuild the stability that time has stolen. The key is not to dismiss these early warnings. Every shuffle, every stumble, every groan when climbing stairs is your body sending a message. When you listen and take action, you regain control. When you ignore it, you leave yourself vulnerable to the kind of fall that can change your life in an instant. Number 6, how to wake up and strengthen this forgotten muscle. The most empowering truth about the hip flexor is that even after years of weakness, it can be reawakened. This tiny muscle responds quickly when you challenge it with simple, consistent movements. You don't need a gym, heavy weights, or complicated routines. What you need is awareness, patience, and a willingness to practice a few small habits each day. One of the easiest ways to begin is with seated marches. Sit tall in a sturdy chair and lift one knee toward your chest, then lower it slowly. Alternate legs for 10 to 15 repetitions. This action directly engages the hip flexor and reminds it to do the job it was designed for. Over time, your stride will begin to feel lighter and more controlled. Another powerful exercise is the standing knee lift. Hold on to a counter or chair for balance. Lift one knee as high as you comfortably can and lower it with control. Repeat this on each leg. At first, you may only manage small lifts, but consistency is more important than height. Each repetition builds strength and retrains your body to lift your legs naturally. Stretching also plays a key role. Because many seniors spend hours sitting, the hip flexor becomes tight as well as weak. Kneeling hip stretches or simply standing and stepping one leg back while pushing the hips gently forward can restore flexibility. This combination of strength and length allows the muscle to move freely, reducing strain on your back and improving overall balance. Let's look at an example. Caroline, a 77-year-old woman, had fallen twice in 1 year. She began practicing these simple movements each morning for 5 minutes. Within 3 months, her stride lengthened, her posture improved, and her confidence returned. She reported that she no longer felt afraid of falling every time she left her house. The most important part is making these exercises a ritual, just like brushing your teeth or having your morning coffee. When you commit to them daily, you are not just training a muscle, you are sending yourself a message that you value your independence and your future. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Final thoughts. The truth is, most seniors who struggle with falls are not weak, clumsy, or careless. They are simply unaware that one small muscle holds so much power over their stability. The hip flexor may be tiny, but its role is enormous. When it becomes neglected, it quietly robs you of strength, balance, and confidence. When it is cared for, it gives you back the freedom to move without fear. Every fall that is prevented means more years of independence, more afternoons walking with your grandchildren, more mornings gardening without hesitation, and more evenings standing tall with pride. It is never too late to take charge of your health, and sometimes the biggest changes come from focusing on the smallest parts of your body. So ask yourself, what would it mean for you to walk without fear again? What would it mean to trust your legs and know you can step forward safely? The answer is within your control, and it begins with a few minutes each day dedicated to this overlooked muscle. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.